Welcome to another live CK podcast here on the Basketball Zone YouTube channel. And guess what? Today we have a very special guest, my boy Kenyon, coming straight from Toronto, the very musty, hot Toronto. His debut, both Kenny and I talk a lot of basketball privately, and I thought it was a great opportunity to come talk about Rudy Gobert, Spider Mitchell, Zach LaVine, and of course, a little bit of Raptors talk. That always helps out. Kenyon, how you feeling, brother? How are you, first and foremost?
Honestly, I'm doing great. Just focusing on what I need to do and still loving basketball until a couple weeks, or I guess a week from now, it'll be done. Actually, less.
So Father's Day will be Game 7. We can pretty much scratch that in there, man. The NBA wants 7 games. We all know that. What have been your thoughts, briefly about these NBA finals?
So if I go one series back, that's where I started seeing what I'm seeing now, which is there was a movement towards long positionless basketball. And as you know, through our conversations, that's what I'm all about. I think some teams are ahead of the curve and other teams are getting there. But yeah, so that's what I'm noticing. It has been, I'm surprised that the Celtics, kind of, I don't know what happened, honestly. It seems like mentally they checked out.
It's a little bit of championship pedigree there, right? There's a lot of pressure on them. A lot of national media heads crowning them pretty much like, oh, this is over. The Celtics got this in the bag and blah, blah, blah. Steph Curry said, hold up a little bit, man. I'm still one of the faces of the NBA. He's been fabulous. He was human last night, but he's been fabulous. I still think he wins Finals MVP, regardless of the outcome. Man, I mean, he's been so exceptional, right? He'd be the second since Jerry West, if they lose. Which again, my original pick was Warriors in 7, and it kind of fluctuated to Celtics in 7. We all know it's going 7. The NBA wants it. Game 3, Foster. I think the Celtics were 13-0 when Foster reffed their games, and they were 15-1 when the other guy, but they lost Game 4. So it kind of feels like the Celtics have given up some games, right? Like it feels like they're the better team, but we can make the same argument for Golden State losing Game 1. A 19-0 run in the fourth quarter, that's extremely unheard of. I mean, that was an anomaly. A combination of Derek White, Al Horford, and Marcus Smart combined for 15 made threes. That ain't happened since. So, yeah, man, it's been fun. But let's get to today's slate of news. Raptors 905 G League head coach Patrick Mutombo is joining the Phoenix Suns as an assistant coach. Now, Kenyon, what does that mean for the Raptors organization and their development program?
Well, I think if you have an organization and your guys are always getting poached, your guys are always getting interviewed, that's not a bad thing. That's one way to look at it is, if you're getting interviews, then you're doing something right. So I think that this is a good move I'm happy for, Coach Mutombo first and foremost. I know that he meant a lot to our development program. So, obviously it's sad, but we've lost, I think, what was it, the year before? We lost Jerry Stackhouse, not to an NBA team, but
to a college team.
To a college team. Or I think he actually went he was an assistant first to another team and then went to college.
Right.
But it happens.
It happens, man. Yes, they're very good at that. They're very good at finding players. They're very good at finding coaches, up and coming coaches, man. So shout out to the Raptors organization. Shout out to Robert as well. Mishovich. He always talks about how the Raptors are the modern day Spurs, right? I have yet to agree to that. I think they're close. Definitely a world-class organization. But I do understand, the perspective and the outlook of what they've done, right? Championship in 2019, and they've been very successful. They kind of had a down year the year before Scotty. Then they got Scotty. Now it just seems like they're on the upward trajectory, which is always a good thing. So the big news of the day today was the Atlanta Hawks, Kenyon, are exploring trade options for Rudy Gobert. Then some other news said that the offer could include, and then keywords, some combination of Clint Capella, John Collins, Kevin Huerter, the number 16th overall pick. People are saying that's a robbery for Utah. Pretty much everyone is saying that they would just own the Hawks if they made this move. How do you feel about this move? Because obviously a lot of fans are very recreational fans. They don't understand the impact that Rudy provides. Yeah, I'm not a big Rudy fan offensively. I've been a big hater for a lot of years. I think he's really held the Jazz back from actually winning it, and like in my humble opinion, because they had a great team. He's just not a guy that you can keep on the floor, man. So, what are your thoughts on a potential Hawks and Utah Jazz trade?
So, just to reiterate, it's Huerter,
John Collins, Clint Capella, So it says a combination. But if that was the whole deal, do you think that's a good haul for Utah? Because I think it's a phenomenal haul for Utah.
Okay, yeah. So I was about to ask, do you want me to give you the Utah side or
give me both sides? Side?
So from the Utah side, I think it's an interesting haul. I'm definitely not against it. I think it's good. I was talking to someone else before saying that I think that the Jazz shouldn't be picky with their Rudy Gobert destinations.
Okay.
I think it's, on one hand, you hear a lot of rumors around the league where he's not necessarily the most well-liked guy.
100%. He shut down our league, bro.
So, there's actually a reporter, I will not say their name, but he called Rudy a dingus.
Big dingus.
So that right there, I think if you can get that guy out and you can get a haul like that, I'm not against it. I like Huerter. I like, I like the 16th pick. I think it's a good haul. So from that perspective, I like it. From Atlanta's perspective, it's like, okay, they basically tried to emulate Golden State.
Yep.
They have not been successful in that.
They went to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, I think that they punched a little bit above their weight when they did that. Yeah. And that was just my opinion at the time.
Yeah, they did.
And then I believe they signed, because that was last year, so John Collins was signed right this offseason, past offseason. And I felt like that was a bad move. So this is kind of a course correction, if you will. So from their perspective,
you're saying that they overachieved,
like
and you're saying they overachieved, then they came back down to earth.
Yeah, I felt the same for the Knicks, and I was right. Sorry, Knicks fans.
Knicks fans.
It's been a rough couple years. But yeah, so I think from Atlanta, like my question is like, can Gobert, if Gobert struggles to, cover up the mistakes of the Jazz, can he cover up the mistakes of someone like Trey?
100%.
Now it's a different team, but it's a valid question, I think. So that would be my question.
Would you make the deal if the deal has Clint Capella, Kevin Huerter, and number 16, and no John Collins? I still make that move if I'm Utah.
Yeah. So from Utah, yes, I would make that move.
Yes.
I would call the Uber up, or you don't even need to do the Uber. The car is warm and I'm ready to go. So
yeah, and that's because both you and I were debating yesterday on Spider Mitchell and some potential moves and what the outlook is for the Utah Jazz. So let's give people some perspective. They hired Danny Ainge. They were the number 4 or 5 seed. They've been there, kind of stuck like from 1 to 4 the last few years. Quinn Snyder, hell of a basketball coach. And last year, to me, was the year where they could have made it to the finals and faced off against Milwaukee, because I think they were the better matchup for Phoenix. Obviously, the NBA is all about matchups. But unfortunately, they lost to not a a great Clippers team without Kawhi Leonard because he got injured, and they still somehow closed it out. And to my point, yes, people want to talk about, oh, where their perimeter defense sucks, but who killed them? And that was the kid that's a second round pick, and he was torturing Rudy Gobert. Like, they literally went small. They had like 5 guards out there. I'm slipping on his name from the Clippers, but that's my point where it's one thing to protect the paint, and then when they put you, huh?
He's from FSU.
What's his
Terrence Mann.
Terrence Mann? Yes. So Terrence Mann was literally, I mean, he had 40 in Game 7, right? And Rudy was guarding him, but the problem has always been, it's not like, okay, yeah, kill Rudy on the perimeter. It's what is Rudy doing offensively? Like, the man has yet to actually put a post move together in the amount of time that he's been in the NBA. To me, that's the sad part, Kenyon. For a guy to be so freaking good and so impactful defensively, but really he can't keep himself on the floor because defense has never been the issue. It's been, okay, can you shoot a 15-foot shot? Can you shoot free throws? Like, can you shoot like a nice sweeping hook shot? Like, he has nothing in his bag, and that's why Mitchell. And people question why he doesn't pass the ball to Rudy. I wouldn't pass the ball to Rudy either, to be honest with you, because I know what the result will be. It'll be passing in the paint. He won't look for a shot. He's gonna pass it out, and then your advantage is gone. So a lot of that happened, and that's why I have such a big issue with Rudy Gobert, and that leads to this, right? Danny Ainge has a big decision to make. What's going to get you a bigger haul, Spider Mitchell or Rudy Gobert? And honestly, that depends on who you ask, because if you ask people from the Ringer, they think it's Rudy Gobert because they're not fans of Spider Mitchell. I mean, they were talking about Pascal being better than Spider, Garland. And I'm like,
Well,
I'm not even talking about contracts and all that. I'm literally saying, who's a better player? Don't be a prisoner of the moment, right? Spider just had his worst playoffs ever. Before this year, Spider has been a historic playoff performer. So I just feel like a lot of people fall under that prisoner of the moment type of stuff. But, and so this leads into the following question for you. If you're the Utah Jazz, who do you think is going to get you the bigger haul? Spider or Rudy?
well, I mean, it's pretty obvious that around the league. I mean, even just for the reason that I said, where one guy isn't really notoriously liked. So in terms of smoothing out cultures and sending this guy out to another team and having him fit into other teams' cultures. I think Mitchell is obviously going to get you a bigger haul and should get you a bigger haul. I would be surprised if it didn't. If a follow up from that is should the Utah Jazz pick one or the other? I think that they will try to pick Mitchell, but ultimately I think that that's a stopgap, because the second that and this is what I was saying to you before, is that I don't think that the Utah Jazz, remove the tension in the locker room for a second. The Utah Jazz are not going to be better next year with any trade with Rudy Gobert not on their team, right? It just there's very few single trades that you can do that are realistic that will make them a better team. Does that mean that they should keep him? Absolutely not. But I'm just saying, so as soon as Mitchell wants to win, as soon as you're in a situation where you're frustrated already,
right?
You go through another year, you're going to be worse. The West is going to be better and tougher next year, because I was just looking at the standings and I'm like, okay, Boston's gassed probably. I hope not. But yeah, it's sorry. Where was I? So you have a situation like that, and I think it's going to be tough for Utah to be in that top 4 for them to get home court advantage. Clippers are going to be better. Nuggets are going to be healthier, right? Everyone forgot about the Canadian guy, Jamal Murray, but
Yep.
he's going to be back. So if I'm running with the assumption that Ainge is going to do Ainge things, that's typically what happens. And I think that whoever goes first, this is going to be the start of some things.
And then I told you that the new ownership hired Danny Ainge to get them over the hump because they've been stuck.
Yeah.
Like it's not bad to be where we're at, right? Like, as
No,
King, like as a Kings fan, they haven't made the playoffs in 16
don't
years.
talk me into that.
Right. So like as a Kings fan, like I'm like I'd rather be in the Utah situation 100% of the time, like making the playoffs every year and just having a chance. Like once you get to the playoffs, that just means that it gives you a chance because you really have to play it out. Like you never know if an injury can happen. Obviously, you're hoping for an injury, but that gives you a chance. And they're right there on the cusp. And maybe they need a new voice, which is why other people are going for that job in Utah. Right there is stability there. And then if this hypothetical, I'm just saying, if you get Clint Capella, Herter, and number 16. This could be the move where, someone like Robert and I have always agreed on, like that Rudy Gay trade. It wasn't necessarily that, they're getting better players, but the fit could be a lot better, right? Like the pieces could fit better. And, there won't be any more tension. And let's not act like Clint Capella's not a hell of a player. Like Clint Capella is a stud, great rebounder, good shot blocker. He's not the defensive, defensive impact type player that Rudy is, but that could be a really good get if they land that. So now, just hypothetically say, they land that. To me, they're not getting worse. They're staying where they're at, which is, 4-5. Like you said, like they're trying to get home court advantage to give themselves a shot. So are they a move away? Do they then, flip that number 16 pick to, I don't know, a team like the Thunder who loves 12-year-olds? Like, yeah, I'm going to give you a 16 and, can I get Lou Dort out of that? Like, they need to improve their perimeter defense, and that's a fact. So I think a move like that would be best for them if they want to stay relevant. But yet again, you talked about some potential moves yesterday that I want people to hear about and see where they're at, and then I'll just pull back on you. So you had the Knicks trade, right?
Yeah.
For Spida.
Well, I'll first say that, like, when I think about trades that a team should make, I try not to think 2 moves ahead, because I think that that's where you kind of run into trouble. Is you're like, oh well, I'm going to take the 16th pick and then I'm going to flip it here and then go, and it's like you look at what OKC just did. They just got rid of one of their picks. They just got rid of the 30th, if I'm not mistaken. And so I don't see them, unless they're trying to move up to 1, which I don't think that they're going to be able to move up to 1. Because to me, I have a draft philosophy of you take your guy and you run with it. So that would be me. But yeah, if we're talking about spider trades, so I guess I'll talk about I'll talk about one that has come up in the news, and then I'll talk about the one that I proposed to you. So one that I've heard in, I guess, Bleacher Report or whatever was the Miami deal, where it was I think Tyler Hero, I think 2
Duncan.
first-round picks. I have and Duncan Robinson and Omar.
Yep,
I'm not sure.
Center. Yep.
Yeah. So, and then I was just thinking of, like, well, what are other teams that could get Donovan Mitchell? I actually so it was, Robert gave me that shout out. So him and I were talking about the Raptors framework. We can talk about that another time. But one of the ones that we were talking about and that I've talked with other people is the Knicks. I think that the Knicks are a good suitor for him, in my opinion. And I think that they have the assets that are very Ainge-like assets if they're forward thinking. So the idea. So you got
RJ Barrett, right? You got RJ Barrett.
RJ Barrett
quickly
is absolutely going to be in the deal. Like, there's
100%.
You're hanging up the phone without. Fournier has to be in the deal just from a salary matching standpoint. And then I believe I said quickly the 11th and a future first round pick. Let's just say unprotected, so it's just easy to talk about. And so from my perspective, I know that Knicks are going to Knicks, right? I know that, no offense, sorry, Knicks fans.
Yep.
I know that future first is probably going to be decent, more than likely. And with the Knicks giving up all of those assets, and their salary cap is still going to be around the same. It's not like
Right.
they have a whole lot of moves to make. I believe that I have to look at their cap sheet, but I think that that's still so. What they have
Right.
the taxpayer mid level, so that's 6.4 million and the biannual exception. That's not much money to play with to fill out that team. They're not going to be good next year.
Yeah, so you're saying Randall and Spida. How far does that take you? Maybe an 8 seed, like best case scenario, right?
Maybe,
Yeah,
maybe
maybe,
the
maybe.
East
Because
is going to be better
East
too.
is pretty tough. Yeah, East is pretty tough. So let me tell you why I hate that deal. Because when I think about the
Yeah,
Raptors, when I think about the Kings, when I think about the Sixers, which is what I brought up yesterday, I think all three of those teams, they have better, deals to offer. So for example, Toronto, uh, Freddie VanVleet, Trent Jr., and 2 firsts.
yep,
Like to me, that's a much better haul than RJ Barrett quickly, who is still a huge unknown. Second year, he had an okay first year, had some promise, but as we both know, perception in the NBA is a real thing. And since he didn't do much, I would say very inconsistent, had some good moments, had a lot of like mediocre moments last year and sophomore year. I think his value was down. And again, perceptionally speaking, there isn't like that, Maxi, like that, oh my God, like that raw. He had a great playoff, you know what
yep,
I'm saying? He's not
yeah.
there. In terms of talent,
So I'll push back a bit though
yeah, go
on
ahead, go
that
ahead.
because um so first of all, I think RJ Barrett. Some people think, oh, he's good because like of where he was picked. I'm not looking at it that way. I'm looking at, when I watched him, and I really watched him closely in FIBA. Now FIBA it's a different game, right?
Yeah, way different.
But I looked for the improvements in his game there. And then I also during the season I noticed that early on, I mean the Knicks were awful this year, right? But early on, I saw defensive improvements and I saw playmaking improvements, and that kind of translated over from what I saw in the summer in FIBA. Team Canada will be better this time,
Yes, they
but
will.
that's we'll talk about that
Yes, they
another time
will.
too. But yeah, so to me, I look at where is the league going. Yes, I do like Maxi, so there's no argument there, right? Maxi's a really, really. I think I sent you my thing, and I was
Yeah,
like, Maxi's a fast guy. He's really good, but defensively, Maxi is not very good at all. Actually, he
yeah.
kind of grades to basically a defensive sieve at this point. Will that improve? I don't know. It might, but again, if you're trading one sieve for another, right? Who is, let's be honest, Maxi is not the player that that Mitchell is. Maybe
Oh,
he will be in a couple
of course
years,
not.
but he's
Yeah,
not, right? And Mitchell isn't old either, right?
yeah.
So I'll say this, and you'll think I'm crazy, but in terms of Mitchell as an offensive player, he is around where a John Morant would be
hundred
in
percent.
terms of his. Yeah, so that's why I'm like, you know, I guess it comes down to how do you view RJ Barrett,
So to
and
me, Maxi
the
and,
pick
and like
equity is where I
right, but like to me, Maxi and RJ, that's a wash, right? Like we can agree to disagree.
sure.
That
So
they're
let's
pretty
let's
like
let's
like
let's
upswing,
yeah.
yeah, like upside. They both have like their plus and minuses, right? I'll take RJ defensively, and then I'll take Maxi offensively. Sure, that's the wash. So my deal was Maxi, Tobias, and Thibault, and then and the number 23 pick and a future pick. So my thing is, okay, Thibault, we know what he is. Awful shooter, great defender. He's
Was he a
definitely
factor in the series this year?
no, he wasn't, but he's
Yeah.
still a 6'8" wing. Yeah, but he's still a 6'8" wing that if in the right situation, those guys thrive, and there aren't many of those guys, and those guys are coveted league wide. So again,
When they're two-way players, right?
perception and yeah, but I mean he's elite defensively though. Like let's not act like he's not. Like he's elite defensively. Like
I'm saying
like that
he's
guy
good
is like
defensively. I'm not going
a
to take that away,
lockdown defender. Like
right? Like,
he's
yeah,
great at one thing. So that and he's 6'8". So you can put him on the point guard, shoot, like whoever. So that has value in itself. Whether or not he had a shit, playoff, which he did, he still has more value than quickly, like without question. So when you compare those two, he beats him there, so there's more value there. Then you talk about a contract, which again is god awful, but Tobias Harris is a hell of a basketball player. Like he's always been a good player. Period. So he's the guy that can get you 20 points a night easily. So yes, talk about a contract, but you also got to fill in like you also got to match salaries though at the end of the day. And those are three rotational players plus whatever the 23 turns out to be. Like that's a way better haul than New York's, in my opinion, in terms of just player for player. And then Toronto's is way better too. Like Van Vliet, Trent Jr., I think they're better as well. So I don't see how New York finds. I mean, the only way is that Spida actually wants to be there because he's from there. And he's like, okay, Danny, trade me there. But then if I'm Danny, I'm like,
factoring that in.
Yeah, like if I'm Danny, I'm trying to get the best haul possible, period. And to me, those Toronto and Philly have more to offer than New York. I mean, I think New York's just in a shit situation, in my opinion. Like, and I'm not trying to, shit like on Knicks fans, but they're not in a great situation, man. Like, I don't think so. Not. I mean, I don't think so.
Like, you won't get an argument from me on the Knicks current situation. There, it's not good. I think where we disagree is our viewpoints of like Quickly as a player, right? Like I grade Quickly as I think he could use work defensively, and there's no question. Like he is. Let me put it this way: when you look at Quickly and you look at the advanced metrics, and you look at Thibault and you look at the advanced metrics, defensively, Quickly is like less than good. So, like, let's say he's below average, but he's not terrible. Whereas Thibault is really bad.
Sure.
So I look at what is the potential for a player to be a two-way player. Quickly has a much bigger, better potential. Now, in terms of height, Quickly is a shorter player. But, in terms of, like, two-way ability, I would say that he's there. And then RJ Barrett is already a two-way player. So I look at two-way wings. Yeah, RJ Barrett is on the, he's not short, but he's on the shorter side for a wing because he's 6'6". But he can definitely, if you watch him, he gets to.
He's solid.
Rim.
He's solid.
He will be much better next year. He's talking to the right guys, and also, I'm of the mindset that you can never have too many playmakers on a team. It's actually one of the reasons why I really don't like Rudy Gobert. Is I'm like, if he could just pass, even. Right? If he could pass at a solid rate, he would be exponentially better. So from that standpoint, like I know we're probably not going to come to a
so like which deal is
like
better?
An agreement here.
Toronto's deal or the Knicks deal?
From a Utah perspective, I would take the Knicks deal because
really.
Because first of all, you're getting better picks. Right? So number one, you're getting better picks.
But you're getting better players with the Raptors. And you're a playoff team right now.
Sorry. I thought you meant versus Philly.
Yeah, no. So if you get Van Vliet, Trent Jr., and picks, doesn't that make you a better team?
So, okay. Would I like Utah to take that deal? Yes. Do I think that Danny Ainge is going to make that? So the question is, you hire a guy. Obviously, you want him to, give you a championship. How much of a leash does Danny Ainge have? Did he go in those meetings that he said, like, you know what, give me, I need X amount of years and I can build you a contender, right? Or was it, we're going to hire you, but you need to win next year? Because those are two different kind of conversations. And usually when a GM is now coming in and you're not the Lakers, right? Or a coach and you're not the Lakers, you're starting to look, maybe not 10 years down the line, but you're looking in like 3 to 5 year increments, right? So if I'm looking in a 5-year window, I'm going to pick the New York deal rather than the Toronto deal, for example, because I'm going to have young players, a young player that I can tout as a franchise player quickly, he's 22 years old, and then you're getting the 11th pick in the draft, which depending on who drops, that could be a pretty good get. And then let's assume that the following year it'll be the 15th pick in the draft, right? That's not a bad haul. Toronto's picks aren't going to be good. Let's be honest.
Right, right. But again, like you said, it truly does come down to that, right? Where
Yeah,
Danny Ainge did not take over a bad organization. He took over a very good one. And he took over a good situation with two disgruntled stars. So in my opinion, it's like you have to make things work and kind of put a band-aid over it and
yeah,
still stay relevant. Like I'm not doing the full rebuild. Like I didn't hire Danny to like lose and like, oh, give me time so I can build you a Boston Celtics. Like that's not what I hired him for. And I think that's where you're alluding to in terms of why you would take that Knicks deal. But he's taken
yeah.
over a top
I'm going with
like
who
a
is
top
Danny
notch
Ainge, and
team.
yeah,
Like I mean, like
yeah,
Utah aren't the Kings. Like Utah is a legit organization that expects to win. So I think that's where I differ. And I'm like, well, if you're gonna get rid of Spida, you got to find good players in return that are like players, like now, not like potential two-way. Like we know what Van Vliet is. He's solid. We know what Trent is. He's solid.
yeah,
And whatever you get, is just a plus, right? Like if you get the 25th or the 22nd, like we all understand that Spida, Siakam, and Scotty, that's a top 5 team guaranteed in the East. So, so
yeah. So it would be
I do
worse
get it. Yes.
defensively, without question, because for whatever reasons, Spider's
Well, that's
college defensive
that's
numbers have
assuming
not
if you
translated
get
over.
Spida like now,
But
like but if he gets
yeah,
Spida in college or Spida his first year, then you're getting a really good defender.
yes. Yeah, so what I'm saying is like it would be a worse like in that framework, the Raptors would be a worse defensive team, but like they're so good defensively right now that
Yeah.
they can absorb that.
Right.
Offensively, it would be really really good, and I know that some people don't think that it would do. To me, a guy like Spider, he wants to win, so I think it's an easier conversation to say, okay, you get your shots, you can be a secondary guy. There's going to be moments where we're going to want you to be a primary, but we're going to let Scotty and, frankly, Pascal Siakam, who are just they're really really good playmakers. By both the eye test and the actual numbers, they're really 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 advanced playmakers. Let them run the show, but you still can get like 20 shots a game if you want. So,
For sure. I mean,
I think,
yeah, to me it just comes down to like, what's the conversation like? Him going into an actual organization that's already structured. There's a
yeah,
system in place, right? Are you going to make the willing sacrifices to get to honestly to get in better shape because he was the entire offense for the Utah Jazz, and now you can kind of
yeah,
like, okay, now I can cut off weak side. I can do the other things off ball that the Jazz are better with him on the ball. Like, yes, they have Mike Conley, but they were better with him, period. Like on the
yeah.
ball, and one of the most underrated things that no
Mike
one,
Conley is washed, by the way.
yeah, for sure. I mean, well, he's watched because he's injured, right? Like he's this little dude who's like
And he's
always
old.
banged. Yeah, and he's old, so it's like his bones don't
He's
act
older
the
than Kyle
same.
Lowry, and they both played on
That's
the same
crazy.
team.
That's crazy. Yeah, but one of the most underrated things about, Spida is his playmaking ability. He's one of the most
Yeah,
gifted passers in basketball, man. Like if you see how he scans the floor and the ability to make certain passes that not a lot of people can make, like showtime passes, like Spida has it
yeah,
in his game, but it's just hard to play with a guy like Rudy Gobert, who is just so limited offensively, man. But that's where I think, like, if I'm Utah, I'm going that direction. But honestly, if I'm Utah and if I can get that haul for Rudy Gobert, then I'm doing that. Like, and just putting the band-aid over it. Get Clint Capella, get Herter, another wing. I mean, he's not great, but he's not bad. So he's still a rotational player. Then you never know what they get at number 16 because they drafted Spida at number 13. So there could be some value there as well. I would love that for them, for them to stay relevant. But if we're talking about just straight deals for Spida, like if they have to move him, then yeah, I would consider Philly, Toronto, and
yeah.
Sacramento's deal over
I
New
don't know
York's
the
deal.
Sacramento deal, but I will say I don't think that Miami has the assets to get.
100%, and that's my point. I feel like Miami and New York are in the same boat
Yeah,
where, yeah, Tyler's nice. He's freaking awful defensively. One, because of his frame. He's just like when I think about De'Aaron Fox, yes, he's awful, but as I've stated before, he's capable. Tyler isn't capable because he's limited athletically, right? Like, same with Spida and Spida and Fox are like, they're more than capable of being really good. It just comes down to conditioning. Like it comes down to like buying
we'll talk
in.
about Fox versus Mitchell another day, but yeah.
Sure, but like honestly though, like when you evaluate a player, you have to ask the question like, what's gonna get that guy to buy in? Everybody talks about Andrew Wiggins for years. Guess what? He looks great now because he has structure, the structure that he never had. He was always 6'8". He always had a 7'4" wingspan. He was always a freak athletically, but he was always a bad defender. But now it's like, oh my God, he's a great defender. Well, he was always capable. And that's what I mean when I tell you and Robert, like, certain players are capable of doing things. Yeah, the metrics may say they fucking suck, but the reality is they're capable. When I look at Tyler Hero, he's not capable because he is who he is. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's a slower white dude.
His lateral quickness is not really good. That alone is very tough. And that is a really tough thing to improve.
Exactly.
It's a lot easier to, like, in a straight line improve your speed, but like when you're talking about side to side movements, there's a lot more to it.
100%, man. So that's where I'm at. And then last topic before I let you go, because I do have to go as well, is Zach LaVine. Are you surprised that they're pretty much saying that he's expected to resign? I think there's a lot of smoke screens there. I think he's gonna leave, man. Like, I really do.
So, all right. So, I guess my question is, do you want to elaborate on the smokescreen thing? So,
just because of how it all went, and DeMar taking on a bigger role there, right? He was pretty darn good for them this past year. I don't think that roster wins, especially with the Raptors and the Cavs on the upswing. So Chicago has to look at themselves and be like, okay, well, where are we right now? Like, that's a team that's in contention for a championship, and yet they're still missing a lot of pieces. So can they move Zach and get other positions of need? So when they say he's expected to resign, that doesn't mean he's going to stay. That could be a sign and trade deal too, you know? So that's what I mean by a smoke screen.
Yeah, so I think that they will re-sign him. I don't think that that's the best move.
Right.
And I sorry to my best friend. He is a Bulls fan, and I told him at the beginning of the year that they were not going to make it past
I told
the first
everybody
round.
that. I told everybody that. Like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah, so I really like the pickup of Lonzo. I really like Caruso, but they spent a lot of their assets getting Vooch, right?
They did.
And I've heard of them potentially trying to get Rudy Gobert, and
would you make that swap, Rudy for Vooch?
For what it was suggested, no, because it was gonna. This is not, by the way, full disclaimer, this is not my suggestion. Yeah. But someone said Rudy Gobert for Vooch, and I think it was they would include, picks and like Patrick Williams, and I was just like, no. Like, absolutely not.
If you're the Bulls, does that make it better if you just swap those? Just say hypothetically, Rudy for Vooch.
Just Rudy for Vooch, of course. Yeah, absolutely, because they have it's dependent on a big factor in that hypothetical, which is and so far this is not looking good, but can Lonzo get healthy in time?
Right, that's tough.
He just recently said he has setbacks, so to me, yeah, if I'm them, they're in a tough spot. I would be looking at a different direction, and I would build around. I don't have their medical records on hand, but Lonzo and Caruso long term, and Patrick Williams and some of the young guys. That's what I would do. But I think perfect. Yeah, I mean, like, he's Hey, James.
Yeah, what's up, James? Our good friend James. All right, man. So that's going to do it, y'all. Every day we're doing the show this week leading up to the NBA draft. We'll have some Raptors talk as well. We'll have Kenyon back on, man. I got to go. I want to be respectful.
Who do you want the Kings to take?
I want
or
to
what
trade.
do you want the Kings to do?
I want the Kings to trade for Levine, Spida, or Beal. But if they don't do that, then I would take
using Holmes and the 4th pick. I'm just kidding.
No, so for me, for like it'd be Harrison Barnes, Rashawn Holmes, number 4, 3 first-round picks, and Davion Mitchell. I think that's a hell of a fucking haul for Utah. Because Bill Simmons just talked about just Davion and number 4. I'm like, done. Let's do it. I don't think it would take that little of a deal, because then that would make the Kings really good. And like if they can keep Rashawn and HB, but I'm being realistic, and I'm like, okay, well, you got to give up HB, Holmes, Davion, number 4, and potentially 1 or 2 more picks. Like, that's a huge get for them. Like, that's a real like possibility in my opinion. So that's where I'm at in terms of like, yeah, I love Ivy. I think he's gonna be a very good player. I don't know about a star, but very, very good. So I'm just tired of projects, man. I just want to win. That's all.
You're just traumatized because you guys have been in the lottery since the Bush administration.
Exactly. that.
I'm sorry. I'm very
that's
sorry.
where I'm at, man. So yeah, so I'd go Ivy. If they have to choose somebody, Keegan Murray would be my second option because he's solid. But yeah, I'd go Ivy, Murray, but I'd go, either of the star shooting guards first, and either Spida number 1, Beal number 2, and Levine number 3 because of injuries. So those would be my top 3 guys. Shaden Sharp's in there as well as my top 3. He's a question mark, but man, like if you just look at his, size, athleticism, his gifts, like there's a lot of intrigue by him. But that's where I'm at, bro. I'm sure we'll extend the conversation and see who fits with the Raptors as well. There is some.
I have a couple names.
There's some guys, late first that they can, move back into early second. But yeah, man, thank you guys so much. Kenyon, where can they follow you? Oh, and expect some breakdowns from Kenyon soon, man.
Maybe in the fall when I get the chance.
Yeah.
But, first of all, thanks for having me on. Right now, I mean, if you're on the Raptors, forum, I moderate on there. Other than that, I'm not really on too much social media. So yeah, thanks for having me.
That's good for you, bro. Don't do it, man. It consumes your life. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Make sure you guys hit a like button for us or dislike if you guys disagree with us. It helps out the algorithm either way. We're on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. So just look up CK Podcast and drop a review for us. It helps us out a lot. Other than that, we'll see you guys tomorrow. And game 6, game 7 coming up. It's going to be a hell of the next 2 games, man. Peace.